The air crackled with an electric hum as Rachel Harper, a 32-year-old investigative journalist from Chicago, stumbled out of a shimmering vortex in the middle of a dusty olive grove. One moment, she'd been chasing a lead in a dimly lit archive, clutching a strange, glowing artifact she'd found tucked in a forgotten file labeled Temporal Anomalies. The next, she was here wherever here was. The sun beat down mercilessly, and the scent of wild thyme and salt hung heavy in the air. Her phone, predictably, was dead. Her laptop bag, slung over her shoulder, felt like a relic from another world. Rachel's sharp green eyes scanned the horizon, catching sight of whitewashed buildings cascading down a hillside toward a glittering sea. "Great," she muttered, brushing dirt off her jeans. "Either I'm on the world's most authentic Greek island reenactment tour, or I've officially lost it." She wasn't wrong about the Greek part. As she trudged toward the cluster of buildings, the truth hit her like a freight train. This wasn't modern Greece. The men and women bustling through the Agora wore chitons and himatians, their sandals slapping against stone paths. No cars, no power lines, no Wi-Fi. A quick eavesdrop on a heated debate about the will of Athena and a glimpse of a temple's towering columns confirmed her suspicion. This was Athens, circa 400 BC. Rachel Harper, star reporter for the Chicago Sentinel, had somehow time-traveled to the heart of ancient Greece. Panic clawed at her chest, but Rachel was no stranger to chaos. She'd reported from war zones, exposed corrupt senators, and once sweet-talked her way out of a cartel's hideout. If she could survive that, she could survive this. She squared her shoulders, her auburn hair glinting in the sun, and decided to do what she did best: dig for the truth. But first, she needed to blend in. Using her quick wit, Rachel bartered her modern jacket deemed exotic by a wide-eyed merchant for a flowing chiton and a pair of sandals. The fabric clung to her frame, accentuating her athletic build, and she couldn't help but feel a thrill at the transformation. She was a chameleon, slipping into this ancient world like she'd been born for it. Her next step was to understand the pulse of Athens. The Agora buzzed with life vendors hawking figs and pottery, philosophers pontificating under shady colonnades, and citizens gossiping about everything from naval campaigns to scandalous love affairs. But beneath the chatter, Rachel sensed a void. Information was scarce, fragmented, and often distorted by rumor. A man swore he'd seen a sea monster off Piraeus. A woman whispered about a politician bribing priests. No one seemed to know what was true. Rachel's journalistic instincts kicked into overdrive. "This place needs a newspaper," she said aloud, earning a curious glance from a nearby olive cellar. She grinned, her mind racing. If she was stuck in 400 BC, she'd make the most of it. She'd give Athens its first taste of real reporting her way. Her first challenge was logistics. No printing presses, no internet, no newsstands. But Rachel was resourceful. She scrounged up papyrus scrolls from a grumpy scribe named Nicias, who only relented after she spun a tale about being a scribe from a distant land. Ink came from a squid vendor, and a makeshift quill was fashioned from a reed. Sitting cross-legged under an olive tree, Rachel began to write. Her first issue was a single scroll, painstakingly handwritten, titled The Athenian Dispatch. She kept it simple, a report on a recent assembly debate about funding a new trireme fleet, spiced up with a juicy rumor about a counselor's affair with a priestess. To make it pop, She added a headline in bold, blocky letters: "Triumphs or treachery? Athens decides." The next morning, Rachel hit the Agora like a storm. She stood on a low stone platform, holding her scroll aloft, her voice cutting through the morning clamor. "Citizens of Athens, tired of rumors, want the truth? Step right up for the Athenian Dispatch, your source for what's really happening." Her Chicago accent, laced with a performer's flair, drew a crowd. She read aloud, her words sharp and rhythmic, painting vivid pictures of debates and scandals. When she jokingly called the Agora the original social media, the crowd roared with laughter, though half didn't understand the reference. Word spread like wildfire. By noon, people were clamoring for copies. Rachel, ever the hustler, bartered scrolls for bread, wine, and even a small bronze coin stamped with an owl. Her sharp wit and outsider's perspective made her a sensation. A young potter named Lysander became her first subscriber, trading clay tablets for daily updates. An elderly woman named Daphne, who ran a fish stall, declared Rachel touched by Hermes for her knack for news. Even a brooding philosopher named Critias lingered at the edge of her crowd, scribbling notes. But not everyone was charmed. Across the Agora, a tall, imposing man watched Rachel with narrowed eyes. His name was Theron, a powerful archon with a reputation for ruthlessness. Clad in a crimson cloak, his presence commanded fear. Theron thrived on controlling information, whispering half-truths to sway the assembly. Rachel's dispatch, with its unfiltered honesty, was a threat. As she handed out her last scroll, Theron's shadow loomed over her. "You, foreigner," he growled, his voice low and venomous. "What is this nonsense you peddle? You stir the people with your scribbles." Rachel didn't flinch. She'd faced down mob bosses. This guy was just a toga, wearing bully. "It's called journalism, pal," she shot back, her green eyes flashing. "The people deserve to know what's going on. You got a problem with that?" Theron's lip curled. "You mock our ways and call our sacred Agora what was it? Social media?" The crowd tittered, but his glare silenced them. "Tread carefully, woman. Athens has no patience for troublemakers." He turned and strode away, his cloak billowing. Rachel's heart pounded, but she masked it with a smirk. "Yeah, keep walking, Red Cape," she muttered. She knew she'd made an enemy, but she wasn't about to back down. If anything, Theron's threat only fueled her fire. She'd keep writing, keep digging, keep shaking things up. That night, under a sky blazing with stars, Rachel sat by a flickering oil lamp, drafting her next dispatch. She'd overheard whispers of a scandal involving Therona's secret deal to divert public funds to his allies. If she could find proof, she could expose him and cement her place in Athens. But the risks were high. Theron's spies were everywhere, and her status as an outsider made her vulnerable. As she dipped her quill in ink, a strange sound echoed in the distance, a low hum, like the one that had brought her here. She froze, her pulse racing. Was it the Kong Thoi Jian she'd later learn about, or just her imagination? Rachel shook it off and kept writing, her words flowing like a river. She was in too deep to stop now. Athens was her beat, and she'd report the truth no matter the cost. Little did she know, the storm was just beginning. The Athenian Agora pulsed with life as Rachel Harper, Chicago's time-displaced journalist, leaned into her newfound role as the voice of truth in 400 BC. Her handwritten Athenian dispatch had become the talk of the city, passed hand to hand like sacred texts, its bold headlines and sharp wit igniting debates from the fish stalls to the philosopher's stoves. Rachel, draped in a sapphire chiton that hugged her frame, moved through the crowd with the confidence of a seasoned reporter. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight, and her green eyes sparkled with mischief as she bantered with her subscribers. To the Athenians, she was an enigma foreign woman with a silver tongue and a knack for uncovering secrets. To Rachel, this was her element, and she was thriving. Her latest issue had caused a stir, titled "Counselor's Coffers, Where's the Gold?" It hinted at shady dealings in the city's treasury, with a pointed jab at Theron, the crimson-cloaked archon who'd already marked her as trouble. Rachel had overheard whispers in a tavern slurred confessions from a drunken clerk about Theron funneling public funds to his cronies for a lavish festival honoring Poseidon. She hadn't named him directly, but the implication was clear. The Agora buzzed with speculation, and Rachel relished the chaos. "Nothing like a good scoop to shake things up," she murmured, handing a scroll to Lysander, her loyal potter turned assistant. Lysander, a lanky 20-year-old with a mop of dark curls, grinned. "You've got half of Athens reading, Rachel. The other half's terrified. Daphne says you're Athena in disguise." Rachel laughed, her voice rich and warm. "Athena wishes she had my deadline hustle." She'd grown fond of Lysander's earnest enthusiasm. He'd started helping her copy scrolls, his nimble fingers speeding up production. In return, she taught him tricks of the trade, how to eavesdrop without looking suspicious, how to coax gossip from tight-lipped merchants. Together, they were a two-person newsroom, operating out of a cramped stall Rachel had bartered for with a month's worth of dispatch subscriptions. But her success came with a price. Theron's spies lurked in the shadows, their eyes tracking her every move. Rachel felt their presenza prickling at the back of her neck as she navigated the Agora's labyrinthine alleys. She'd caught glimpses of cloaked figures, lingering too long near her stall, their whispers silenced when she turned. Theron wasn't just a bully, he was a predator, and Rachel was his prey. Still, she refused to cower. "If he wants a fight, he's getting one," she told Lysander, her jaw set. Her boldness only fueled her popularity. By midweek, Rachel's readings in the Agora drew crowds that rivaled the orators. She'd climb onto her stone platform, scroll in hand, and deliver the news like a performance. Her Chicago flare-peppered with quips like, "The assembly's hotter than a summer in Illinois," left the Athenians howling with laughter. When she dubbed the public debates the OG social media, the phrase caught on, whispered by youths who didn't quite grasp it, but loved its irreverence. Rachel leaned into the role, her voice sultry and commanding, her gestures drawing every eye. She was part reporter, part showwoman, and Athens couldn't get enough. One sweltering afternoon, as Rachel read a piece about a botched naval expedition, a new figure joined the crowd. He was tall, with a lean build and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see through her. His name was Cale, a merchant from Corinth who'd recently settled in Athens. Unlike the others, he didn't laugh at her jokes or cheer her barbs. He watched, silent and intense, his presence sending a shiver down her spine. When she finished, he approached, his voice low and smooth. "You wield words like a blade, stranger, but blades can cut their wielder." Rachel arched a brow, unfazed. "Thanks for the metaphor, Corinth. Got any news tips to go with it?" Cale's lips twitched, almost a smile. Perhaps, but take care. Not all in Athens welcome your innovations. He slipped away before she could press him, leaving her intrigued and wary. There was something about Kale dangerous, magnetic, that lingered in her thoughts. That night, Rachel and Lysander worked by lamplight, copying scrolls for the next day's dispatch. She'd scored a lead from Daphne, the fishmonger, about a secret meeting between Theron and a group of oligarchs plotting to sway the assembly. If she could confirm it, it'd be her biggest story yet. But as she scribbled, a shadow fell across the stall. 3 men, cloaked and armed with daggers, loomed in the doorway. Lysander froze, but Rachel's instincts kicked in. "Evening, boys," she said, her tone light, but her hand inching toward a bronze paperweight. "Lost your way to the tavern?" The leader, a scar-faced brute, sneered. "Theron sends a message. Your scribbles end tonight, or you do." Rachel's heart raced, but she'd talked her way out of worse. "Tell Theron I'm flattered, but I've got a deadline. How about an exclusive instead? I hear he's got a festival scam going. Care to comment?" The men hesitated, thrown by her bravado. Seizing the moment, Rachel hurled the paperweight, catching the leader square in the chest. He stumbled, and Lysander sprang into action, swinging a clay pot that shattered against the second man's head. The third lunged, but Rachel dodged, grabbing a reed quill and jabbing it into his hand. He howled, and the trio fled into the night, cursing. Panting, Rachel turned to Lysander. "You okay, kid?" He nodded, wide-eyed. "You're insane, Rachel, and I love it." She grinned, adrenaline pumping. "Welcome to journalism." But the attack was a wake-up call. Theron wasn't playing games. She needed to move faster, dig deeper, and stay one step ahead. The next day, Rachel doubled down. She and Lysander split up, working their sources. Rachel charmed a clerk named Milo into spilling details about Theron's meeting, confirming it was set for that evening in a secluded villa near the Acropolis. Lysander, meanwhile, sweet-talked a servant who'd overheard Theron boasting about silencing the foreign scribe. Armed with this, Rachel crafted her boldest dispatch yet. Oligarch and Archons. A secret plot? It didn't name Theron outright. She needed hard proof, but it laid out the meeting's time and place, daring him to react. When she read it in the Agora, the crowd erupted. Citizens whispered about betrayal. Some called for Theron's head. Rachel felt the tide turning, her words reshaping Athens. But as she stepped down, Theron himself appeared, his crimson cloak a slash of menace against the white stone. The crowd parted, and his voice boomed. "You, Rachel of wherever you claim to be," he said, his eyes glittering with rage. "Your lies poison Athens. I charge you with sedition. Cease your scribbles for 2 days, or face exile or worse." The crowd gasped, but Rachel held his gaze, her pulse hammering. 2 days? Generous. But I'm not big on ultimatums, Theron. How about a counteroffer? Step into the light. Let's talk about that villa meeting tonight. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Theron's face darkened, but he couldn't back down without losing face. "You have until sundown tomorrow," he snarled. "Defy me, and you'll beg for exile." He stormed off, leaving Rachel breathless but defiant. As the crowd dispersed, Cale emerged, his blue eyes unreadable. "You've poked the lion, Rachel. What now?" She smirked, though her stomach churned. "Now? I crashed that meeting. I need proof Theron's dirty, or I'm done for." Cale studied her, then nodded. "I know a way into the villa. Meet me at dusk." He vanished into the throng, leaving her torn between suspicion and intrigue. Could she trust him? Did she have a choice? That evening, as the sun bled orange over the Acropolis, Rachel slipped through Athens' winding streets, her chiton swapped for a dark cloak. Lysander had begged to come, but she'd sent him to guard the stall. This was her fight. At the villa's edge, Chaol waited, his silhouette sharp against the twilight. He handed her a dagger, his fingers brushing hers, sending a jolt through her. "Stay close," he whispered, "and don't die. I'm starting to like your stories." Rachel gripped the dagger, her heart a drumbeat. The villa loomed, its torches casting flickering shadows. Inside, Theron and his allies plotted Athens' future and her doom. She needed evidence, and she needed it now. As she followed Chaol into the darkness, the hum of that strange portal echoed in her mind, a reminder of the world she'd left and the one she was fighting to survive in. The Athenian night was alive with whispers. As Rachel Harper, the time-displaced journalist from Chicago, crept through the shadows toward the villa nestled against the Acropolis. Her heart pounded like a war drum, the weight of Theron's ultimatums hiss her Athenian dispatch, or face exile pressing down on her. The air was thick with the scent of olive oil and pine, and the distant hum of that mysterious portal lingered in her mind, a tantalizing echo of the life she'd left behind. But Rachel was no quitter. She'd faced down mobsters and senators. A toga-wearing tyrant like Theron wasn't going to stop her. Tonight, she'd infiltrate his secret meeting, expose his corruption, and save her Neckardi trying. Beside her, Chaol, the enigmatic Corinthian merchant, moved like a panther, his blue eyes glinting in the torchlight. His dark cloak blended with the night, and the dagger he'd given her felt heavy in her hand, its cold bronze a stark reminder of the stakes. Their chemistry crackled his cryptic warnings and fleeting touches, sparking a mix of suspicion and attraction in Rachel's journalist heart. "Stay sharp," Chaol murmured, his voice a low caress. "Theron's guards are no tavern drunks." Rachel flashed a defiant grin, her auburn hair tucked under her hood. "Good. I'm not here for a wine tasting." Her sapphire chiton, hidden beneath the cloak, clung to her curves, and she felt a thrill at the danger, her senses heightened. This was her beat, her story, and she'd write it in ink or blood. Chaol led her to a crumbling wall at the villa's rear, where ivy concealed a narrow gap. "Servant's entrance," he whispered, prying loose a stone. "Theron's too arrogant to guard it." Rachel nodded, slipping through the gap, her pulse racing as they emerged into a moonlit courtyard. The villa loomed, its marble columns gleaming, voices drifting from an inner chamber. Theron's voice deep, commanding cut through the murmur, laced with venom as he spoke of securing Athens' future. Rachel's journalistic instincts flared. She gestured for Chaol to follow, creeping along a colonnade toward a latticed window. Peering through, she saw Theron at a table with 5 men oligarchs, their faces hard and greedy. Gold coins glinted in piles, and a map of Athens' treasury routes lay spread before them. Theron's words were damning. "The festival funds will flow to our allies. The assembly will never know, and that foreign scribe shall be silenced by dawn." Her blood ran cold. Theron wasn't just corrupt, was planning her murder. But this was her chance. She needed proof, something undeniable. She whispered to Chaol, "I need that map or a witness, something to nail him." Chaol's eyes narrowed. "The map's too risky. There's a clerk inside, Milo. He's weak. Get him to talk." Rachel remembered Milo, the nervous treasury clerk she'd charmed days ago. If she could corner him, she might get a confession. But time was slipping away. Theron's guards patrolled the courtyard, their sandals slapping closer. Kale pulled her into an alcove as two passed, his body pressed against hers, his breath warm on her neck. "Careful, Chicago," he teased, his voice a velvet threat. "You're too pretty to end up in chains." She smirked, ignoring the heat in her cheeks. "Flirt later, Corinth. Work now." But her mind raced. Could she trust Kale? His help was invaluable, but his motives were a mystery. They split up. Kale circled to distract the guards, while Rachel slipped into the villa through a side door. The interior was opulent mosaics of gods, adorned the floors, and oil lamps cast flickering shadows. She moved like a ghost, her cloak whispering against the marble. Voices grew louder as she neared a small room where Milo sat, hunched over scrolls, his face pale. Rachel's heart leapt. This was her shot. She stepped into the light, dropping her hood. "Milo, we need to talk," he yelped, nearly toppling his inkpot. "You? How? Theron will kill me." Rachel leaned in, her voice low and urgent, her green eyes locking onto his. "He's killing Athens, Milo, stealing from the treasury, rigging the assembly. I know you've seen it. Help me stop him, and you're a hero. Stay silent, and you're complicit." Milo trembled, his loyalty to Theron warring with fear. Rachel softened her tone, a trick she'd used on countless sources. "I've got your back, Milo. Tell me what you know, and I'll make sure Athens knows you stood up." He cracked, his voice a whisper. "Theron's diverting festival funds to his allies. The map in the chamberette shows the routes. I've kept records, hidden in my satchel." He pointed to a leather bag in the corner. Jackpot. Rachel grabbed the satchel, finding a scroll with Milo's meticulous note states, sums, names. It was enough to bury Theron. But as she tucked it under her cloak, a shout echoed from the courtyard, Kael's voice, sharp with warning. "Rachel, run!" Her stomach dropped. She shoved Milo toward a back exit. "Go! Hide!" He scrambled away as footsteps thundered closer. Rachel bolted, clutching the satchel, but the villa's halls were a maze. She ducked into a storage room, heart hammering, as guards stormed past. Through a crack in the door, she saw Theron himself, his crimson cloak swirling, his face a mask of fury. "Find her!" he roared. "She's here!" Rachel's mind raced. She had the evidence, but she was trapped. The villa was crawling with Theron's men, and Kael was nowhere in sight. Had he betrayed her, or was he fighting for his own life? She gripped the dagger, her knuckles white, and scanned the room. A narrow window led to the roofer-only chance. She climbed, her chiton snagging on rough stone, and emerged into the cool night air, the Acropolis looming above like a silent judge. The roof was a precarious perch, tiled and sloping, but it gave her a view of the chaos below. Guards swarmed the courtyard, torches blazing. Kael was there, pinned by two men, his dagger flashing as he fought. Rachel's chest tightened. He hadn't sold her out, but she couldn't help him yet. She needed to get the evidence to the Agora, to the people, before Theron's deadline at sundown. A rustle behind her made her spin. A guard had followed, his blade gleaming. "End of the line, scribe," he sneered, lunging. Rachel dodged, her Chicago street smarts kicking in. She kicked a loose tile, sending it crashing into his shin. He stumbled, and she tackled him, her dagger at his throat. "Tell Theron I'm just getting started," she hissed, knocking him out with the hilt. She slid down the roof's edge, landing in a pile of hay near the villa's outer wall. Her cloak was torn, her hair wild, but the satchel was secure. She sprinted into Athens' twisting streets, the city a blur of moonlight and shadow. Her plan was desperate but clear. Reach Lysander at the stall, copy Milo's records, and flood the Agora with a special dispatch before Theron could stop her. She found Lysander, wide-eyed, guarding their stall. "Rachel, you're alive!" "Barely," she panted, thrusting the satchel at him. "Copy this every word. We've got Theron by the throat." As Lysander scribbled, Rachel wrote her headline: "Theron's treason, gold stolen, Athens betrayed." The words burned with righteous fury. They worked through the night, producing a dozen scrolls enough to seed the Agora. But dawn brought a new threat. A messenger arrived, his face grim. "Theron's doubled the guard. He's searching for you. And he's got Kael." Rachel's heart sank. Kael, her wildcard ally, was a prisoner. She owed him, but exposing Theron came first. She sent Lysander to distribute the scrolls, instructing him to slip them to Daphne, the fishmonger, and other trusted allies. "Get these to the Agora. Let the people decide." By noon, Athens was ablaze with her story. Citizens read Milo's records in disbelief, their anger swelling. In the Agora, Daphne's voice rang out, rallying the crowd. "Theron's robbed us! Rachel speaks truth." The assembly convened, and Theron, cornered, faced a tide of accusations. Rachel watched from a hidden perch, her breath catching as he tried to spin lies, only to be drowned out by cries for justice. As sundown loomed, Theron's ultimatum expired. He stormed into the Agora, his guards dragging a bloodied Kael. "This is your scribe's ally," he bellowed. "Confess her lies, or he dies." Rachel's resolve hardened. She stepped from the shadows, scroll in hand, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Theron, your game's over. The people have the truth. Milo's records, your map, your plot. Want to talk exile? Start with yourself." The crowd roared, surging forward. Theron's guards wavered, outnumbered. In a final act of desperation, he lunged for Rachel, but Kael broke free, tackling him. Guards turned on their master, and Theron was restrained, his crimson cloak pooling like blood. The assembly voted Theron would face trial, his power shattered. Rachel exhaled, the weight lifting. She'd done-eyed exposed the scandal, saved herself, and turned Athens upside down. As the crowd cheered, Kael approached, his smile weary but warm. "Your trouble, Chicago?" She laughed, her eyes sparkling. "You're not so bad yourself, Corinth." But the victory was bittersweet. As she slipped away to the stall, a figure waited. Critias, the brooding philosopher. His voice was grave. "You've changed Athens, Rachel Harper, but the portal that brought you here, it calls. I know where it lies." Her heart raced. The Kongthoigean, her way home, but Athens felt alive, her work unfinished. Would she stay or chase the hum of the unknown? The Athenian night was a tapestry of stars, each pinprick of light a silent witness to Rachel Harper's triumph. The Chicago journalist, thrust into 400 BC, had toppled Theron, the corrupt archon, with her Athenian dispatch. Her exposé of his treasury theft had set the Agora ablaze, the people's cheers still echoing in her ears as she slipped through the city's winding streets. Her sapphire chiton, torn from her rooftop escape, clung to her sweat-slicked curves, her auburn hair a wild cascade under a borrowed cloak. Rachel was a storm in human form, bold, unyielding, and undeniably alive. Yet, as she moved toward the olive grove where Critias, the cryptic philosopher, awaited, her heart thrummed with a new question: stay in this vibrant, chaotic Athens, or chase the mysterious Kong Toi Jian that could take her home? The grove was bathed in moonlight, the air heavy with time and anticipation. Critias stood by a gnarled tree, his lean frame draped in a dark himation, his eyes sharp as obsidian. "You've reshaped Athens, Rachel Harper," he said, his voice a low rumble. "But the portal that brought you here, it stirs. I've seen it, hidden in the caves beneath the Acropolis. It calls to you." Rachel's breath caught. The portal. That electric hum. The same one that had yanked her from a Chicago archive to this ancient world had haunted her dreams. Home, her apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, her newsroom buzzing with deadlines, her life felt like a distant memory, but Athens had claimed her. The Agora's pulse, Lysander's loyalty, Kale's dangerous allure, they'd woven themselves into her soul. Could she leave this behind? "Show me," she said, her voice steady, but laced with curiosity. Critias nodded, leading her toward the Acropolis's shadowed base. As they descended into a labyrinth of caves, Rachel's mind raced. She'd exposed Theron, but whispers of his allies lingered, oligarchs, plotting in the shadows, ready to strike. Her dispatch was a beacon, but it had made her a target. And Kale, her enigmatic ally, bloodied but unbroken after saving her from Theron's wrath, was a complication she couldn't ignore. His blue eyes, his teasing whispers, had sparked something reckless in her. The cave was cool, its walls etched with ancient symbols that glowed faintly, like embers. At its heart stood the portala, shimmering vortex of silver and indigo, its hum a siren's song. Rachel's skin prickled as she approached, the air crackling with energy. "This is it," Critias said. "Step through and you may return to your time, or stay and shape ours." Rachel's fingers brushed the dagger at her hip, a gift from Kyle. She was torn. Her journalist's heart craved the truth of the portal, but her newfound roots in Athens begged her to stay. Before she could decide, a rustle echoed from the cave's entrance. She spun, dagger raised, as Kael emerged, his cloak torn, his chest heaving. Blood streaked his jaw, but his smirk was intact. "Running off without a goodbye, Chicago?" Her pulse quickened. "You look like hell, Corinth. Theron's goons?" "Handled," he said, stepping closer, his voice a velvet growl. "But you're not safe. Theron's allies are rallying. They want your head and your scrolls." His gaze flicked to the portal, then back to her, intense and unreadable. "What's it gonna be? Stay and fight, or vanish?" Rachel's eyes narrowed. Kale's timing was too perfect. Was he here to help, or to push her through the portal for his own reasons? She stepped toward him, her chiton slipping slightly to reveal a glimpse of her shoulder, her movements deliberate. "You know me, Kale. I don't run, but I need answers. Why are you really here?" He closed the distance, his breath warm against her cheek. "Maybe I like trouble," he murmured, his fingers grazing her arm, sending a shiver through her. "Or maybe I know you're more than a scribe. Choose, Rachel. Athens needs you, but so does your world." The air between them crackled, desire and distrust a heady mix. Rachel's lips parted, but before she could respond, a shout shattered the moment. Lysander stumbled into the cave, his curls damp with sweat, his eyes wide. "Rachel! They're coming, Theron's men! A dozen of them! They're burning the stall!" Her stomach lurched. Her dispatch, her lifeline, was in flames. The oligarchs weren't wasting time. She turned to Critias. "How long do I have to decide?" "The portal is unstable," he said. "Hours, perhaps less. Choose soon, or it may choose for you." Rachel's mind raced. She couldn't let her work burn, couldn't abandon Lysander or the people who'd rallied behind her. But the portal's hum was a siren's call, promising Answer-Sand escape. She made a split-second decision. "We save the dispatch first, then I deal with this." She pointed to the portal, her voice fierce. Kyle's smirk returned. "That's my girl." They sprinted from the cave, Critias vanishing into the shadows with a cryptic, "I'll guard the way." The Acropolis loomed above as they raced toward the Agora, the glow of fire painting the sky. Rachel's chiton fluttered, her dagger glinting, her body alive with adrenaline. Kale matched her stride, his presence a steady anchor, while Lysander panted behind, clutching a satchel of salvaged scrolls. The Agora was chaos. Flames licked the stall. Theron's men-cloaked thugs wielding torches shouting threats. Daphne, the fishmonger, stood defiant, hurling insults and fish at the attackers, her weathered face fierce. Citizens gathered, torn between fear and fury. Rachel's heart swelled. These were her people now. She leapt onto a crate, her voice cutting through the din. "Athens! Theron's gone, but his cronies want your voice silenced. They burn the dispatch because they fear the truth. Will you let them?" The crowd roared, emboldened. A young man tossed her a staff, and Rachel caught it, her chiton riding up as she spun to face the thugs. Kale was at her side, dagger drawn, his body coiled like a spring. "Ready, Chicago?" "Born ready," she shot back, her green eyes blazing. The fight was brutal and swift. Rachel swung the staff, cracking a thug's wrist, her movements fluid and fierce. Kael was a whirlwind, his blade flashing, his cloak billowing. Lysander, surprisingly scrappy, tripped a torchbearer, dousing the flames with a bucket of water from Daphne's stall. The citizens joined in, overwhelming the attackers with sheer numbers. Within minutes, the thugs fled, leaving the stall smoldering but salvageable. Rachel stood panting, staff in hand, her chiton streaked with soot, her hair a fiery halo. The crowd chanted her name, and she felt a rush of power. She'd saved her dispatch, her legacy. Daphne hugged her, tears in her eyes. "You're one of us, girl." But as the flames died, Kale pulled her aside, his voice urgent. "This isn't over. The oligarchs will come harder, and that portal it's fading. I felt it." Rachel's chest tightened. The portal, home. Chicago's skyline flashed in her mind neon lights, coffee shops, her old life. But Athens was alive, its pulse her own. And Kale, his gaze held her, a challenge and a promise. She turned to Lysander, who clutched the satchel. "Get these scrolls to the people. Keep the dispatch alive, no matter what." He nodded, his eyes shining. "You're not leaving, are you?" She hesitated, then smiled. "Not yet, but I need to see something." With Kyle at her side, she raced back to the cave. The portal's glow was dimmer, its hum erratic. Critias was gone, but his words lingered. "Choose, or it may choose for you." Rachel stood before the vortex, her heart torn. Kyle's hand brushed hers, his touch electric. "Whatever you pick, I'm with you," he said, his voice raw. But Athens needs its scribe. Rachel's lips curved, a mix of defiance and desire. And Chicago needs its reporter. But maybe I'm both. She stepped closer to the portal, its light bathing her in silver, her chiton clinging to her like a second skin. The hum grew louder, a call to adventure, to truth, to the unknown. She turned to Kael, her eyes fierce. "If I go, you're coming with me. Deal?" He laughed, a sound that sent heat through her. "Try and stop me." The portal flickered, and Rachel's decision hung in the air, a cliffhanger etched in starlight. Would she step through, chasing her past, or stay, forging a future in Athens' fiery heart? The hum swelled, and the cave seemed to hold its breath. What happens next? Will Rachel leap into the portal, dragging Kael into her world? Or will Athens' Calend Kael's dangerous charm keep her in 400 BC? Stay tuned for the next chapter, coming soon to this channel. Don't miss the twist that'll leave you reeling.